Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. Today, I want to get on and talk about how narcissism shows up in the bedroom. So, if you're with a narcissist, the manipulation and the game playing that happens in other areas of your relationship are likely showing up in the bedroom as well. And what I mean by that is that typically at the start of a relationship with a narcissist, they're going to do whatever they can to sort of draw you in and to make sure that they have their supply, right? You're the supply of energy. So in order for them to do that, they have to do, the love bombing thing. And so love bombing shows up outside of the bedroom in that they're, just over the top, extravagant in showing you their love. They figure out, or maybe you tell them what your love language is, and then they meet it. Like, so much so that you're really like blown away by the amount of energy this person is giving towards your love language, right? So they draw you in. And then in the bedroom, technically, they're probably going to be great lovers in that they might know all the right buttons to push. But if you're an empath, you're going to maybe feel that disconnection with when you're with them in those intimate acts, right? You're going to feel that lack of emotional connection. But maybe you just sort of, again, with the love bombing, it's almost like, well, they make, explosions go off and, there's fireworks and everything's great, right? So there's a lot of power in that. So the thing is that what tends to happen though is that just like love bombing outside of the bedroom can they'll withdraw it and, they'll play these little games of giving you like little bits and then they'll take it away. Or, they'll kind of remind you of those times when everything was great. And so you'll get sucked back in, right? You're like, oh, right, this is that person I fell in love with. They are still there. They're not really there. They just felt you disconnecting from them. They felt you withdrawing your attention from them. And so they realized that in order for them to keep you on the hook, they have to do those things again that they did in the beginning to get your attention, to get you drawn in. So they'll do this in the bedroom as well, right? Or they'll just get to a point where they don't even bother with that and it becomes all about them, because it is always all about them, right? And it's more about the performance and the attention that they get, right? So they become less and less caring of your pleasure. So they might not even bother to make the bells ring at that point, right? So but again, they'll sort of play these little games a lot of times where it's like they feed you just a little bit and then they get you back on the hook and then they withdraw and they come back with love bomb, withdraw, So they play these little games. And so what do you do when you find yourself in that situation, right? Like, if you feel like this constant pull towards someone because they keep showing you this side of them that you fell in love with and that you believe to be the real person, then, you're going to stay sort of caught in that loop, right? It's only once you sort of recognize, and sometimes it takes someone outside of your relationship. So like having that friend that you can go to and talk to about it, like, hey, this is happening. Like, does this happen in your relationship? What does your husband do when, you say no? Or, so if you say no to your partner who's a narcissist when they make, overtures, a lot of times that causes, them to retreat and to employ the silent treatment, right? Or they punish you in some other ways. So, we don't necessarily see it when we're in it, but having someone outside of the situation kind of go, yeah, that's not healthy. That's not how, healthy relationships work and thrive. So, because it's really hard to know that when you're in it, right? Because they do play mind games with you and they have you sort of questioning your own thinking and your own feelings, right? So it's important, if you can, to find that impartial person or someone who can give you some insight that you can't get because you're in it, right? That's really helpful. And, you know, so a lot of times though, the narcissist is going to cut you off from your support systems. And so that's why I do these kinds of videos, to talk about things that, you know, maybe you don't have someone to talk to about it. Maybe you don't have a friend that you can go to, and you're questioning, like, is this healthy? Like, is this what other relationships are like? Especially if you don't have a lot of experience in romantic relationships and interpersonal relationships like this. You know, and if you didn't have a model, like maybe you didn't see your parents modeling this, you know, if you just don't have a lot of frame of reference for what does a healthy relationship look like, and you have this other person who's a, you know, master manipulator, you know, telling you how to feel and what beliefs you should have, it's easy to understand that you can get stuck and stay stuck in that mode. And so hopefully when you hear myself or other people talk about toxic relationships and narcissistic relationships and codependency and trauma bonding and all those things, hopefully, and sometimes it's just like right time, right place. You might have heard someone talk about these things a million times, but for that, in that particular moment, it's like a light bulb goes off, right? There's just something within you that can hear what that other person is saying, and hopefully you're hearing it on that level with me, because it's important for you to know that it's not healthy. That's not how healthy couples grow and evolve and achieve, right? Because what's the point in being in a relationship with another person, right? Like ultimately. And when I think about that question, it's like, you know, what, and maybe I didn't have these thoughts and goals and dreams when I was like 19 and first met my husband, or when I was 24 and we married, like, you know, because we were young, and so maybe I wasn't thinking in these ways. But, you know, looking back, I recognized that I was looking for certain traits in a mate that I knew would be compatible with the life that I wanted to build, right? I needed someone who was solid, who was safe, who was going to be there for me, who was a hard worker, who I could count on, who was ambitious, who was also going to help me achieve my goals while they were working on theirs, right? Someone who was willing to share their feelings and their emotions with me. Like, those were all of the traits that I was looking for. And, you know, Donnie didn't necessarily embody all of those things fully in the way that he does now, but I recognized there was enough of those things, and he was far enough along growth wise, and had the potential to grow more. I think that's, you know, that's what you're looking for on a soul level, right? Someone that I can build with. And I think a lot of times it's important to recognize that if you got caught up in the net, if you got caught on the net or on the hook with a narcissist, it's what they're good at, right? It's really what they excel at, is sort of, you know, drawing people in and sucking them into their world. That's their superpower, right? And if you're empathic, and if you're caring, and if your superpower is giving, then it's completely natural that you would find yourself in these situations. And I think a lot of caring, empathetic people often do find themselves in situations with narcissists, and have to kind of learn how to recognize it and how to protect themselves from it, and to make sure that they're not giving the narcissist their energy. And that's hard. That's a real tough one, right? Because naturally the empathetic, caring person, you know, believes that love can solve everything, right? I have that kind of feeling inside of me most of the time. It's a little bit naive on the one hand, but then on the other hand, it's what gives me hope for humanity. So I don't want to completely abandon that. I think it's important to hang on to that kind of hope. And I think it's important to still be willing to share your energy with other people. I think it's just really, really vital that you learn how to discern those people from, other caring people. Because let's face it, like we all encounter people who are in various levels of pain. And, we know that there's a lot of people out there struggling, right? So it's not that you need to cut yourself off from people who are struggling. It's just you need to recognize, that kind of struggle versus the narcissist, because the narcissist isn't going to be helped by love and compassion and empathy. And the other person who's struggling, you might not be able to fix that for them. You might not be able to cure them, but just being empathetic and compassionate and caring can be helpful to that person. And you can still have boundaries, right? So, it's important to just really learn that there's certain boundaries that I want to have in these relationships, and then there's other boundaries that have to just be like super, super firm, right? And in order to do that, in order to learn and discern between, the narcissist and other people who are just struggling, and maybe, that takes some work. And then learning how to have boundaries, and when boundaries are needed, and how much boundaries, and, all of that stuff. Like, those are all skills that we can learn and develop, right? So don't beat yourself up if you don't know how to do those things. Most people don't. It's like I said, it can be an acquired skill. It's something you can develop. But I think the easiest way to be able to embody those skills, to be able to embody those beliefs, is to actually have that belief in yourself first. And that takes help. That takes work. And it takes healing and integration, and and you don't have to do it alone. You're not alone in it. And we need to sort of debunk the shame around, people who've been in relationships with narcissists or been in toxic relationships, to just sort of dispel that belief that it was something that you did, and that somehow you deserved it. You should have known better, right? Let's just get rid of those beliefs around relationships, and that people should just know better. Because let's face it, in the beginning of a relationship, isn't everyone kind of putting their best foot forward anyways? And then with the narcissist, they're going to a whole other level, right? So they're not showing their vulnerability. They're not showing their shadow side. They're not showing that darkness to you. And so, it's completely natural that you would get caught up in the light, right? And so, I just wanted to get on and talk about that, so that, because I hear about it a lot. Like, there's a lot of people that will say, like, oh, being in a relationship with that person, the narcissist, I mean, that was the best sex we ever had, or I ever had, right? And you're like, really? Okay. And then you start to realize that, like, oh, that person really, brought their A game in that way. But then in every other way in the relationship, they just were not able to, provide, right? So sex is important, but it can't be the only thing holding a relationship together, and it won't make up for that lack of emotional connection, right? So, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Namaste.